You're 16, standing in your parents' basement with a rented sledgehammer and a $29.95 bagster from the contractor aisle at Home Depot. 25 years later, you're standing behind a firing panel on a $9 million contract. The wall comes out clean between the studs, and the gypsum dust settles gray across your shoes. Between those two moments sits a trade where the demolition fee is often the smaller half of the money, and the scrap steel and the copper are the rest. The part the cameras come for lasts 16.8 seconds, and everything before it is dust, paperwork, and one document that nobody films. This is every level of demolition work in America, and what it actually costs to climb. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The Sledgehammer. You're 16 and nobody is paying you. The crew that came out to quote the basement gut wanted $2 to $8 a square foot, and your parents said no, so the job is yours. You watch a gut reno video on YouTube twice, then you go find the studs. You knock along the drywall with your knuckles until the sound changes, because the hollow bays are yours and the solid ones might be holding up the house. You check the framing overhead, you find the beam, and you mark the wall that isn't carrying it in blue chalk. Then you kill the breaker for the room, because there's an outlet at knee height and there's live wire behind it you can't see. The first swing goes in before you tape off the doorway. Dust comes up the stairs into the kitchen and onto everything, and you spend an hour with a shop vacuum paying for 30 seconds of enthusiasm. So you score the drywall along the studs with a utility knife first, cutting just through the paper. The paper tears in a line instead of a cloud, and the sheets come off in pieces you can carry out. You pry the nailers loose with a flat bar, twist the studs off the plate, and you stack the lumber by the stairs. You wear a dust mask that fogs your glasses and gloves that are 2 sizes too big. No permit, no crew, no inspection. The bag itself costs $29.95, and it holds 3,300 pounds. Waste Management wants $140 to come and get it. You learn the 2 things that gate every demolition job in America, years before anyone pays you $1 for one: what's holding the load above you, and where all of the debris goes. Then the basement is quiet. Your father comes down, looks at the clean line where the wall used to be, and he doesn't mention the vacuum. You start knocking on other people's walls. The bag goes out to the curb on a Thursday, and the truck takes it at 7 in the morning. Level 2 is the same work in a building you've never seen, for $17 an hour, on a clock. Level 2. The strip-out laborer. You're 18, and the crew calls it soft demo. Everything that comes out of a building before the machines are allowed to touch it. The unit is a dead strip mall tenant, with a dropped ceiling and 40 years of tenant work stacked on top of each other. You pull the ceiling grid down in sheets, cut the light fixtures free, and drag them out to the curb by the handful. You strip the copper out of the walls with a wrecking bar and a recip saw, and you pull the radiators out whole, because they weigh more than they look. Then you sort everything you just carried out of that unit. Steel goes in one pile. Copper goes in a bin that lives inside the locked trailer, and mixed debris goes down the chute into the roll-off. You throw a length of copper into the mixed bin because you're moving fast. The foreman fishes it out, and he holds it up in front of the whole crew, and you never do it again. Not once, not on any job after that. Copper runs $3.30 a pound. You're making $17 an hour, and you know both numbers by heart. Steel moves at $120 a ton, which is why the operator on the next job cares more about the pile than the building. You wet the slab down before you ever put the breaker to it. The dust stays at your boots instead of your face, and the inspector walking the sidewalk keeps walking. The pneumatic breaker buzzes into your wrists and stays there through dinner. An online review of one demolition contractor puts it plainly: the dust hung in the air, and the masks they handed out didn't work. Yours is a respirator you bought yourself, and it does. Then the chute goes quiet. Your first paycheck clears on a Friday, and you cash it at a window instead of on a phone. On Monday, the foreman hands you the breaker instead of the broom and calls you by your name for the first time. You stop washing the dust out of your hair before bed. Half the men who started with you are gone inside a week, and the ones who stay all say the same thing about where the money is. Level 3 is the part of the building you can't see. Level 3. The abatement worker. You're 22, and the job now is the material that was sprayed into American buildings for 60 years and never labeled. The Bureau of Labor Statistics counts 51,300 people doing this work today and pays a median of $48,490 a year. Before anyone cuts anything, the notice goes out. A 10-day letter to the Environmental Protection Agency naming the building, the material, and the date you intend to touch it. Then you build the room inside the room, 6mm plastic sheeting on every surface, 2 layers on the floor, and a taped seam every 4 feet. The negative air machine hangs in the window and pulls the room into a slight suck, so the door flexes inward when you open it. You smoke test the containment with a smoke tube, patch the 2 leaks it finds, and log the reading before you suit up. Tyvek, taped wrists, taped ankles, and a full-face respirator with the strap pulled until your ears ache. The steam line overhead is wrapped in insulation the color of old cake. You wet it through the glove bag with amended water, cut the wrap, roll it down into the bag, and twist the bag off with the material sealed inside it, still wet. Bag out, vacuum the surfaces, through the decon shower, and out. A supervisor named Ronnie Felix ran this exact work on a university student union. A building full of students, stripped clean without a single one of them knowing which week it happened. Your week is worse. Halfway down the run, the glove bag tears at the seam and drops the wrap onto the floor. The room goes silent except for the machine in the window. You could retape it and keep cutting, and nobody in that building would ever know. Instead, you back out, you call the stop, and you hand the log to the supervisor, with your name on the line where the tear happened. They shut the floor for a day and rebuild the containment around the failure point. The air monitoring pump runs all night on a tripod in the middle of the room. In the morning, the clearance sample comes back clean, and the supervisor writes down that you called it. Nobody thanks you for any of it. The next containment they build, they put you on the glove bag first. You stop taking your boots inside the house. The thing about contamination is that it's invisible. The fibers that scare you aren't the ones on the floor. They're the ones riding home in the cuff of your coveralls. You've spent 3 years now working inside buildings. Level 4 puts you outside 1, in a seat, taking it apart from the top down. Level 4, the high reach operator. You're 27, 5 years in, and the seat pays $30 to $45 an hour with a union card behind it. The machine is a high reach excavator, with a rotating shear on the end of a boom that stands taller than the building you're eating. It lists new at $627,961 before attachments. You make $35 an hour to run it. Before you climb up, you walk the structure with the superintendent on the ground and mark the sequence in your head. Corner bay first, then the spandrel, then the columns, floor by floor and never below yourself. You build the mat first, before the machine ever leaves the yard. Crushed concrete graded flat, because a machine that tall on soft ground is a machine on its side. Then you nibble. The shear takes the steel a bite at a time. The pulverizer cracks the slab so the rebar comes out clean, and the grapple swings the good steel into the pile that pays for the job. The spotter works your blind side on hand signals, because the radio is useless under the shearing. You take a bite too deep on the 3rd floor. The slab lets go early. The boom loads sideways, and you set the shear down on the pile and sit still until the dust clears. Diesel, hydraulics, and shearing steel. Kevin Romphoff, who runs a high reach for a living, says the whole job is learning what you can get away with. You spend a season learning where that line actually is, and then you stop looking for it. On the last column of a 5-story teardown, you make the pick 2 other operators won't touch. Slow, high, 1 hand on the boom control, and the wall folds inward exactly where the survey said it would. The superintendent stops assigning the machine to anyone else. You stop flinching when the floor goes. From up there you can see the whole site, the scrap pile, the roll-offs, the water truck, and a man walking the perimeter with a clipboard who has never touched a control lever. Level 5 is the clipboard. Level 5. The superintendent. You're 34, and the average for this seat runs about $95,168 a year. The job is 1 document and 1 only. Before the first swing on any demolition job in this country, a qualified person has to walk the structure and write an engineering survey. The condition of the framing, the floors, the walls, and any chance of an unplanned collapse. It's required by the Federal Demolition Standard, Section 1926.850, and violations of that one provision account for more than half of every citation written under the rule. You write it yourself, in pencil, on a clipboard, over 2 days. Then the utilities: gas capped at the street, electric pulled and tagged, water valved, and a photograph of every cutoff in the packet. Then the plan, the hazard analysis, and the tailgate every morning at 6, with the whole crew standing in a half circle behind a pickup. The supervisor card behind all of it takes 5 years of documented experience on real jobs, a 30-hour safety course, and 8 hours of fall protection. Don Collier, who runs Demolition for a Midwest contractor, says the exam vets out the wanters from the qualified people. On the third week of a warehouse job, you find a wall the drawings don't show. It's carrying the roof purlins over the loading dock, and the plan has an excavator eating through it on Thursday. You stop the job that morning. The owner loses 2 days, calls you twice about the schedule, and then signs the revised sequence without another word. Nobody is standing under that roof when it comes down on Friday, on purpose, in the direction you drew. The other version of that week is a matter of public record. In St. Mary's, Ohio, a worker was crushed and killed in a collapse, and OSHA fined the contractor $41,706 after finding that no engineering survey had been conducted by a qualified person at all. You read the survey before you read the schedule. At the end of the month, you reconcile the scrap tickets against the bid, and the steel closes the gap the fee couldn't. There's one crew on a demolition site that doesn't answer to you. They show up with a drill rig and a locked magazine trailer. Level 6 is that trailer. Level 6. The blaster. You're 41, and the license under this one is federal. 21 years old, a year of documented experience on a crew, a state blaster's card, and a federal explosives clearance you keep clean for the rest of your career. The pay stops being an hourly number and starts being a contract. The Kingdom in Seattle was $9 million. You study the building for 4.5 months before anyone drills a single hole, the columns, the load paths, and the order in which it wants to fall. Then the drilling. Thousands of holes, each one sited on a specific column at a specific height, marked in paint and numbered on a drawing. You load gelatin dynamite into the columns by hand, one charge at a time, and shoot the loading log to the office every night. Then about 21.6 miles of detonation cord, woven through the structure with non-electric delays so the building comes down in the sequence you drew instead of all at once. Jim Redike, who founded an explosive demolition company, describes the whole trade in one line. To fell a structure, you're removing the support columns. The morning of the shot itself, the exclusion zone goes up, the streets close, and a fire truck idles at the corner because that's the rule. You walk the building one last time with a radio and a flashlight, and you're the last person out of it. Then the count. 25,000 tons of concrete come down in 16.8 seconds, straight into its own footprint, and the dust wall crosses the parking lot at a walking pace while the crowd holds behind the tape. You stop watching the building come down and start watching the dust instead. Detroit's J.L. Hudson store went the same way in October of 1998. The tallest building ever imploded at the time, dropped by people doing exactly this. And here's the part the crowd never learns about this trade. The shot is a subcontract. Someone else holds the prime, does 95% of the money work, and hires you for the 15 seconds everyone films. Level 7 is holding the prime and signing the bid yourself. Level 7. The owner. You're 49, and the thing you own now is a yard. Excavators, shears, water trucks, roll-offs, a scale house, and 400 people who need a schedule on Monday. The pay ladder inside a single firm is public. At one large industrial service company, a laborer comes in at $46,980 a year. The construction manager on the same yard runs $121,923. You've stood on both rungs, and you price the second one from the first. The bids you sign now are won and lost on the scrap column, not the demolition fee. Steel tonnage, copper weight, haul distance, tipping cost, and you can read a building's metal from the sidewalk in about 90 seconds. Above you, there's exactly one rung left on this ladder, and it isn't a job title at all. North Star Group runs nearly $700 million in average annual revenue with more than 4,500 employees, and it was recapitalized by a private equity firm. Penhall, founded in 1957, was bought by a capital firm in December of 2023. A firm like yours gets a term sheet, and a term sheet is a number with your name in the signature block. You take the call in the scale house with a hard hat on the desk. The diligence runs 4 months, and they ask for every engineering survey you've written in 10 years, which is the first time in your life that paperwork is an asset. You start signing wire transfers instead of tailgate sheets. The wire clears on a Tuesday morning, and your name stays on the door because they bought it along with the trucks. There's one thing in the office the buyer didn't price, and it's hanging on the wall behind you. Everyone thinks this trade is the implosion. The implosion is pure theater, a small slice of the revenue and all of the public image the trade ever gets. On the $9 million Seattle job, a different contractor held the prime and did the work that actually got paid, and the explosives crew was a specialty sub they hired for the last 15 seconds. The building doesn't make money when it falls. It makes money when it's sorted. Steel to the mill, copper to the yard, clean fill to the pit, and the rest wait at the scale house on the way out. The most dangerous day on a demolition site isn't the engineered shot with the exclusion zone and the fire truck. It's a routine wall coming down on a Tuesday with no survey, no qualified person, and nobody who wrote down what was holding the load. That's the whole trade in one sentence. The boring document is the load-bearing one. Your knees don't take basement stairs the way they did at 16. You'd give them again for the 15 seconds in Seattle, and you'd give them for the Thursday in Ohio you turned into nothing at all. Somewhere in a basement right now, a kid is paying $29.95 for a debris bag instead of $2 to $8 a square foot for a crew. He's knocking on the drywall with his knuckles, listening for the change in the sound. He doesn't know that's the job. That's the job, all of it. The first bag you ever filled is folded flat in a frame on your office wall, hanging beside the first engineering survey you ever signed. Same bag, different weight entirely. Below the window, the yard is loud. The shear working the pile, the water truck laying down dust, and a scale ticket printing in the shack. 400 people are on a schedule you wrote. The keys to the yard gate hang on a hook by the door, under a name stenciled on the glass. They're yours.